Welcome to Ego Netcast. I am Martin Lideskog. On Wednesdays, I will do a midweek wrap-up, you could call it, or Wednesday wrap, like a burrito maybe. Wrap it up for the midweek, mid-roll. I will do a play with words here. So, midweek, mid-roll, that's the name of a big player in the podcast industry, and it's also concept of a video commercial through the mid segment that you have to watch a video commercial during the video, and then you have to click in order to see the rest of the video, like a commercial break. And then blogroll. It's a roll on a list that you have in the sidebar often with fellow bloggers. And I've, as you know, been blogging since 2002. My first blog on Ego blog, on Blogger or Blogspot, that is now owned by Google. I have a blogroll there of fellow bloggers. So midweek it will be a wrap-up of things that have happened, and also shout out to fellow podcasters and listeners to internet on radio on demand. And I got the tip by Niklas Larsson. He's a co-host of a podcast called Prepper podcast called Hemberedskap in Swedish, so home preparedness, with together with Annette Staff and under yours truly undersigned, talking about tea at the end of the show. And he gave me the tip on the Daily Creative Podcast with Todd Henry. So he has, Todd Henry is a speaker and author, and he has been starting this podcast in October last year, and he had been podcasting since 2005, I think he said. I started and listened to the first episode with, you could say, the thing that present the series, and then he had been interviewed Seth Godin, and Seth Godin, he had asked Seth Godin, why do you blog? And Seth Godin said, because he's doing a daily blog post, he said, blogging picked me. So that, and in a way I could relate to that I started in 2002. I wanted to ventilate about the mainstream media. I want to have an outlet, and then I stumbled up on Blogger platform, and then the rest is history, so to speak. So I listened to the first episode of Todd Henry's podcast, and in a way it could be similar with this, the Ego Netcast daily podcast episode. So please go to Todd Henry's podcast, The Daily Creative, and listen with his first episode when he explaining the format of his show. And yeah, so I think that's a great tip there by Niklas Larsson. So I thank you him. Thank you, Niklas, for that. And I have added this Todd Henry's podcast to a service called Listen Notes. So it's a web-based thing, and you could also have a podcast app that's called Listen Later. And then it gives you a random new podcast that you can listen to, get new inspiration. This Listen Notes, you add your curated playlist of podcasts that you want to listen to. And they had lots of neat features. For example, you could have a alert of keywords in your inbox and so on. So I have now added this Todd Henry's podcast, Daily Creative, to Martin Lindeskog's Listen Later curated playlist on Listen Later or Listen Notes. So I will add that in the show notes also. So what do you listen to? Do you have any tips on fellow podcasters or shows that you listen to? And are you planning to start a daily podcast or some other kind of podcast with the scheduling? As I said, when I'm getting the question, how often should you doing this podcasting thing? That's a tricky question in a way. So I'm now doing this as an experience, as I said, and now this is episode 66 of Ego Netcast. With that, I say cheerio and talk to you soon again.